I'm Jolene Wynn, and this is the Porn Addict's Wife podcast, episode number 131, Family Dynamics. Your life does not have to revolve around your husband's pornography addiction. You are not defined by his choices or by what he sees on a screen. You are not just the porn addict's wife. You are so much more. In this podcast, I'm going to teach you how to go from handling it to healed, because I've been where you are and you don't have to stay there. My name is Jolene Wynn. I'm a member of the LDS Faith, a certified life coach, and a wife of a former porn addict. And this is a podcast for the porn addict's wife. Hello, my ladies. How are you? I feel like I haven't talked to you forever because I recorded last week's podcast episode a little bit early and I have been out of town. I was at my house in Delaware, went to visit my family, and we were there for 9 or 10 days, and it was wonderful. And the weather was gorgeous, and the drive, if you guys have never made the drive from North Carolina up to Delaware, you really should, especially in the fall. When all the leaves are changing, it is gorgeous. And my kids kept saying, my daughter, Dixie, who's 4, she kept saying, this looks like the forest in Frozen 2. Just looked magical. It was beautiful, you guys. I was so happy to be home. And we went up there to spend Veterans Day with my family and also to spend some time with my nephew got baptized. So in our religion and our faith, we don't baptize infants. We baptize kids when they're 8 years old. And so he decided to be baptized, and then we did it up there in Delaware, and it was so fun. And another thing that we did that was amazing is we went and saw Ryan Hamilton. Okay. I don't know if you guys have looked up Ryan Hamilton. He is a comedian, and his stuff is very clean. Go look him up on YouTube because he is hilarious. And so one of the reasons that we went up to Delaware as well was my parents, as a gift, got us tickets to go see Ryan Hamilton in Philadelphia. And that was so funny, you guys. I laughed so hard. It was so good. So go look him up. And if you hate it, sorry for the recommendation, but seriously, I think he's hilarious. So you can go look him up. And now we are back. We had a really good drive back and we are back home and we get to be here for 5 days. And next Saturday we are leaving for Florida and we will be in Florida over Thanksgiving. And so I feel like I am not home at all in the month of November, but that's okay. I'm here talking to you guys, and I am so excited to be talking to you. One order of business, or the calendar, right, that I wanted to remind y'all is that this podcast episode is coming out on Monday, November 14th. And on Tuesday, November 15th, is when my prices go up. So if you guys have been thinking about joining coaching, now is the best time. You can consider it an early Christmas present. Get started before the new year, and don't spend one more day feeling like you are right now. I was thinking about this earlier. I need to do a podcast on this, but I was thinking about this while I was, unpacking and cleaning my floor and, doing the dishes and all the things that come when you come back from vacation. And I was thinking about how we talk about living in the past. Like I said, this is going to be a whole new podcast episode, but I just want to share this thought. I was thinking about, we always talk about don't live in the past. And I was thinking, how do we do that? How do you not live in the past? And one of the things that came to me is that when time is a gift, and we don't typically think of it that way. We think of that we have all the time in the world. We think we take time for granted, actually. And one of the things about that is when you use today the same way you did yesterday, when you are the same person today as the person you were yesterday, you're living in the past because you haven't used the opportunity of time, the gift of time, to progress and to move forward. You haven't used it to change and to become who you want to be. That's how we live in the past, was that we stay stuck in it. We keep the past with us. It's not physically, we don't physically go back in time. What we do is we carry all of that emotional weight with us. And every single day that you spend carrying around that emotional weight is one more day that you're living in the past. One more day that you are staying stuck in that hurt. More than that, you have the gift of another day. And every day that you have that gift, every day you wake up is a gift, is an opportunity for you to progress, to change, to move forward, and to start living toward the future. I think it's a lie that we actually stay stuck. In my mind, sometimes we go backward. It's either going forward or going backward, is how I feel. And you're either going to live in the past or you're going to move toward the future. And you get to decide which one you do. So that was a little deep thought for you at the beginning of this podcast episode. But I really wanted you to share it and really consider it, ladies, because there is no better time than whatever day it is that you're listening to this, whether it is the day it comes out or 5 years later when you find this podcast. There is no better time than right now, today, this moment to start moving forward, because that can be the moment that you completely change your life. You need no other opportunity than this moment. There's nothing else you need. You have all of it. And you can start moving forward right now. So you think about it. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to take the next year? If 2022 wasn't your year, if it hasn't been your last few years, I feel like the song on Friends, if it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, or even your year, okay? Ladies, friends, fanatics with me, you know the song, okay? If it hasn't been your year, then what are you going to do to change it? Because the passing of time is not going to be the thing that changes it. You have to be the one to change. Time never changes. It just keeps going. So if you're waiting for time to change you, it's not going to happen, ladies. But good news, you're more in control of it. So let's go. What are you going to do to change it? And I want to encourage you. I want to offer that you come join me in coaching, and I will teach you. I will help you learn how to take everything that you're learning on this podcast and start applying it so that you get out of the stuck, so that you stop living in the past and you start going forward. Okay? I would love to have you all come join me. All right, you can go to my website, joleneWynn.com. You can sign up right there on my website and do so before the 15th, and you will get in at the cheapest it's going to be before prices go up. All right, let's talk, ladies, about family dynamics. All right, so we're about to hit the holidays. I just spent a week with my family. I'm going to go spend another week with my family. And I was thinking about family dynamics and how in the holidays, we typically spend a lot more time with family and extended family than we normally do. So I wanted to offer you guys some thoughts today to hopefully help you have a better holiday experience. Okay. And none of these are new concepts. I've introduced them before on the podcast, but I want you guys to think of them in this context. Okay. In the context of extended family, going to visit family for vacation, for getting together for reunions or what have you, and trying to apply it in that way. Okay. The first thing that I wanted to offer is that you take a look at the expectations that you have of how it's going to go. Okay, the thoughts that you have beforehand, because there's a really powerful thing that happens. It's called confirmation bias. When you think that something is going to be terrible, then your brain will interpret it as terrible. Okay, so I want you guys to just question yourself. What are the kinds of thoughts I have going into this? It could be, oh my gosh, when we go, your mom is going to do this thing. Your mom is going to harp on this. My mom is going to do this. She's always on my case. He never lets it go, right? Whatever it is that you have ahead of time, the thoughts that you have ahead of time are going to change. They're going to filter the way you perceive everything that then happens. Let me give you guys an example. This is not a family dynamic example, but it's a different example that happens a lot, and one that I hear from my clients a lot. And this has to do with triggers, okay? So for example, I had a client who, this was even before we started working together. She had a consultation call and she was like, all right, I'm going to sign up. I just applied for a credit card, so I can't sign up yet, but as soon as I get it, I will. But I just need your help. Like, just give me some advice, because my husband and I are going on a trip this weekend. And this was this summer. And she said, my husband and I are going on a trip. We're going on like a rafting trip or some kind of water activity. So she was going to be in a swimsuit, and it was in a public place. So she knew there were going to be other women in swimsuits. Okay. Big red flag, big trigger for her, which is totally fine. But one of the things that happened is she's like, I know I'm going to be triggered. I know that I'm going to think X, Y, and Z. I know I'm not going to want to be in my swimsuit. I know I'm going to feel uncomfortable. She had these thoughts like, I know I'm going to feel triggered. I know I'm going to feel uncomfortable with him because he's going to think about other women. He's going to be triggered by other women. Now, again, I know this isn't a family dynamic example, but I think it's one y'all can relate to. But notice how, this is what I said to her, notice how you're thinking all of these things are going to happen ahead of time. You are already expecting these kinds of situations to arise. You're expecting yourself and your husband to react a certain way. And when you expect yourself to react a certain way, you're going to create that when it happens. If you expect yourself to feel uncomfortable in a situation, odds are when that situation arises, you are going to feel uncomfortable. You end up creating thoughts that make you feel discomfort in order to prove yourself right. This is confirmation bias. This is how your brain works. So when you're going into your family experiences over the holidays, I want you to start noticing, just ask yourself just pay attention to the thoughts that you have going into it, the thoughts that you have ahead of time. As you're packing your bags, as you're making preparations, what are the thoughts that keep coming up? Are you thinking, this is going to be terrible? I hate this. Your mom is always making me feel X, Y, and Z. I don't want to be by your sister because I feel X, Y, Z around her. Notice the thoughts that you have, and let me offer you an alternative. You guys ready? This is not a thought I came up with by myself. This is actually one I stole from Jody Moore. And years and years and years ago, when I first started listening to her podcast, she was talking about family dynamics, and she was going over this concept. And she said one of her favorite thoughts to think, rather than thinking this is going to be terrible and I hate this, is this is going to be fun. And that thought has always stuck with me. I love that thought because it leaves so much room for all of the people to be exactly how the people are going to be. Okay. And that brings me to my next point is notice the expectations you have of how everyone else is going to act. If you guys haven't listened to my manuals podcast, go back and listen to that one. That is what I want you guys to think about here. A manual is a subconscious kind of list of how you expect other people to behave, or how you expect yourself to behave in relation to those other people. Okay? When we have these manuals or these thoughts of how other people should behave, when we're not aware of them, then we go into situations with certain expectations of how other people should act and what they should say and what they should not say and topics they should not bring up at the Thanksgiving table and all of these things. And when we go in having these subconscious expectations, then in the moment when we're in that situation, then what happens is our brain subconsciously thinks this isn't going how it should go. Something has gone wrong, and it will pinpoint other people as the problem, right? This is when you get really annoyed because somebody, microwaved the butter and melted it completely instead of just softened it. And they should have known better because can't they read instructions, right? This is the kind of stuff that comes up. Or my father should get off the couch and give me a hug when I walk in the door. Or my mom should play with my kids when we're at her house for Thanksgiving rather than staying in the kitchen with the adults. Whatever it is, okay? I want you guys to start noticing the thoughts and expectations you have of how other people should show up, because that is going to it's going to affect the way that you experience and interact with those individuals, right? Now, again, if you think about this in a family dynamic situation, you can think about each person individually. And you can even do this as an experiment ahead of time. I would call this fascinating. My clients get so annoyed with that word, right? This is super fascinating to do, is choose every single member of your family that you're going to see, write their name down at the top of a piece of paper, and then write down all of the things you think they should and shouldn't do. Right? The shoulds and shouldn'ts, that's really our manual. When I walk in the door, or you can even do the experience or the whatever it is that you're going to have, right? Thanksgiving Day. How do you expect that to go? All right, I think that I'm going to walk in and it's going to look like this. I think my dad's going to get up off the couch and come run and greet me. And I think that there's going to be no fighting all the way there. And I think that my mom should be the one to make all of the dinner. And I think my brothers should be the one to clean all the dishes. Or all the men should clean all the dishes on Thanksgiving, right? Give the women a break, right? There are so many things that we think consciously, but then go even to the ones subconsciously. Just start writing and don't filter. And you'll be amazed at what comes up, the things that you aren't even aware that you're thinking, the things that you expect that you have no idea you expect. It's so fascinating. And when you're aware of these ahead of time, what this enables you to do is start looking at it and observing it and deciding whether or not you actually want to keep those expectations or not. Because usually, again, what happens is we go in with these subconscious expectations, and then when everybody starts behaving not according to how we think they should behave, then our brain gets all annoyed and in a tiff. And then we get frustrated with everybody, and it ruins our vacation, right? This is why, is because we're really bad at controlling other people. And if only everyone would behave exactly how we think they should, then our brain thinks that we would feel happier. Our brain thinks that in order for us to be happy, everything has to go according to how it's supposed to go in our brains. But that's not true. Which brings me to my next point, is I want to give you guys permission to allow the 50-50. Okay, we have talked about the 50-50 concept before. Life is 50% positive and 50% negative. And yet sometimes, ladies, we go into the holidays especially, and we expect utopia. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's because we've seen too many Hallmark movies where everyone is like hunky-dory and you fall madly in love in the middle of Vermont in the winter and it's snowing for 4 feet. Like, I don't know what it is that it makes us expect that family dynamics don't exist over the holidays, and yet we go in expecting everything to be a Hallmark card. And what that looks like typically is we have certain expectations of how everyone should behave. And so then when people start behaving however they're going to behave because they're adults and we can't control them, then we get upset and annoyed and we feel like our vacation and our family event is ruined. And it's not, okay? It's going to be 50-50. Just expect it. It's totally fine. It is okay if your husband gets annoyed because he didn't want to cook the turkey. It's okay if your mom gets frustrated when the rolls get burnt. It is okay if your brother doesn't make it. It is okay if your sister-in-law decides not to come. It is okay. Whatever happens, it's all right. It's supposed to be 50-50. Usually what happens is we end up making it mean something more negative because we have this expectation that everyone should behave a certain way when we're all together, right? For example, you might have an idea that when we're all together, everybody should, okay, again, that's a big red flag, should clean up more. Or maybe when you're all together, your mom should be the one to clean up. Or maybe when you're all together, then someone else should be the one to run out to the grocery store. It shouldn't have to be you. Whatever you think the shoulds and shouldn'ts are. Right? When we have the shoulds and shouldn'ts, the manuals for how other people are going to behave, we sometimes expect them to do things so that we create this utopian idea, and then we get really disappointed and frustrated and bitter when that doesn't happen. So what I want to give you guys permission is to expect the 50-50. Just know that people are going to behave however they're going to behave, and it's totally fine. They are allowed to be human, and they are allowed to have emotions. And that brings me to the next one, which is to focus on yourself, not on them. And here's what I mean by that. I don't mean that in a selfish way. I actually mean that in a genuine interest kind of way. Now, here's what I mean. Typically what happens is we show up and we start judging everybody for their behavior immediately, almost as soon as we enter the door. Our brain immediately starts to look at the way other people are behaving and trying to interpret it as having something to do with us, which is exactly what your brain is designed to do. Your brain is designed to keep you alive. So one of the things that it does is it starts interpreting everything that everyone else is doing and trying to see how you fit in, right? It's trying to solve the puzzle. Where do I fit into this, right? So if you walk in and your sister-in-law is in the kitchen and she's cooking and she doesn't say hi immediately, then your brain says, oh my gosh, is she mad at me? Did I do something wrong? What just happened? Why is she so aloof and distant? Rather than thinking that it's not about you, that it's about her. And this is what I mean is it's think about yourself, not about them. Okay, your brain doesn't need to make everything about you. It wants to, so you need to be in charge of your brain and remind your brain that you are not the center of everyone else's life. I know this is hard to think, okay? Our teenagers are not very good at this. We need to be better than our teenagers at this, okay? You are not as important as you think you are, and I mean that in the best possible way. So what I mean by focusing on yourself is rather than focusing on how everyone else is showing up and trying to decide whether they should be different, I want you to focus on yourself. How do you want to show up? How do you want to be different? If last year's Thanksgiving was miserable and it's going to be full of the same people and you don't know how to change it, then I want you to focus on the thing that you can control, which is yourself. Change how you show up to the conversation. How do you want to feel ahead of time? How do you want to show up? What are the things you want to do? And then you can come from a place of genuine interest rather than of trying to manipulate other people's behavior so that you feel better, right? Or just going in with a chip on your shoulder ahead of time, right? Having those expectations, this is going to be terrible. It's going to be a repeat of last year, and then end up creating that same thing. Do you guys see what I'm saying? Focus on you, on how you want to show up. And not in a way that means self-centered and how everybody needs to conform to you, but rather the opposite. Rather, understanding and letting people be who they're going to be, not expecting them to change and be different for this 1 week that you guys are together. Let them be them and let you be you, okay? And give yourself permission to focus on yourself, to show up the way that you want to, and do it on purpose, okay? The last thing that I want you guys, okay, 2 more things. Real quick, okay? One of the things that has been really helpful for me and something that I've worked really hard to do in my own life is, and this can be really tricky, but it takes intentional effort, can absolutely be done, is if you don't like the way that certain relationships have gone in the past, like if you don't like the way that you interact with your brother or, whoever the person is in your family, if you don't like the way that you interact with them, then I want to encourage you to be the bigger person. And what that looks like is changing past habits. It can be changing the way you speak to them, changing the way that you interact with them physically, right? I have 2 brothers in particular that when I was growing up, they could not pass each other in the hallway without touching each other or wrestling. Like my brothers were wrestling all the time growing up. And I'm just bringing this up as an example because this is what comes to my mind. If you have an interaction with an individual in your family that seems almost like a habit, right? You're just like, I don't know, when we get together, he just always picks on me or pulls my hair, or we're really sarcastic with one another. Then if that's not the way that you want to have the relationship continue from here on out, then it's up to you to change those past habits. Let me give you an example. When I grew up in a family of very sarcastic individuals, I was the youngest of 7. I grew up with sarcasm. That was just our family. And I never thought anything of it. And that was something that everyone always said when they met our family. They're like, wow, you guys are so sarcastic. My brothers were always really sarcastic. That was their humor. And I just kind of adopted it. And I didn't really think a whole lot of it. And then when we got married, my husband and I, he did not grow up in a family with a lot of sarcasm. And so he said, you know what? I don't love that. I don't love the way that you speak to me in sarcasm. It's not funny to me. And I would appreciate it if you didn't speak to me with so much sarcasm all the time. And that was very difficult for me to change because I had been doing it for 20 years. And, well, not 20, but whenever I learned what sarcasm was, it had been quite some time. And it took me some time, but with intentionality and focus, I was able to shift the way that I spoke with my husband. I was able to change my sarcastic nature, the habit of being sarcastic, my deflection with sarcasm. I was able to change it. Now, that is what I want to offer for you in your relationships. Take a look at the relationship that you struggle with the most and ask yourself, what is it that I don't like about it? And is it something that I can change? Now, your brain is going to want to say, nope, it's all them. They're the problem. If they would just not be a jerk, or if she would just stop being so judgmental, then it would be fine. And I wouldn't have to do anything, or I can't do anything to fix it. And what I want to offer is that that's not true. If you don't like the way that you're interacting, I want you to take a look at your side of the relationship. Okay, take a look at your side of how you're showing up and then ask yourself, how can I change it? Because I guarantee you can. It's your thoughts and your feelings and your actions, and you are 50% of that relationship. And I guarantee you, if you start to change, then their interaction will change too. Now, it might not be at first, and they can continue to be just as whatever as they've always been. Whatever the thought is, judgmental, harsh, jerk, whatever it is, unloving, whatever it is. They're allowed to be that, and that's fine. However they want to behave is totally fine. You get to decide how you want to show up, and that might take some effort. Maybe you ask yourself, okay, I don't want to gossip so much when we're together. I don't want to go in my room at the end of the day and pull my sister in there and talk about everybody else. That's a habit that we've been doing that I don't want to do anymore. And that might take some effort on your part. And that's okay. And maybe you aren't perfect at it. Maybe there's a time where you just need to vent, and that's okay too. But what I want to offer, ladies, my point in bringing this up is that if there are past habits that you have, if there's a way that you are coming into this situation in this relationship, then I want to offer that you take a moment without judging yourself, but take a moment and say, okay, is that the way that I want to continue to show up? And if not, then what am I going to do to change it? Okay? And then, ladies, the very last thing that I wanted to focus on today, and the last tip that I wanted to give you, is process the emotion. Again, I have yet to find a way to say this in less of a life coachy term. Process the emotion, feel the feelings, ladies. Okay, don't react to them. There are going to be lots of emotions that come up. Okay, you're going to spend a week with your family. You're going to have holidays that are going to bring up a lot of things: frustration, anger, bitterness, resentment, rejection, plus all of the positive ones too. There's going to be joy and excitement. And there's going to be so much love and gratitude. And I want you guys to process all of it. Allow yourself to experience all of it, because that is what makes life amazing. It's learning how to have all of it, because that's what we're meant to have. So expect the 50-50. It's going to be 50% positive and 50% negative. And it is so beautiful. So I give you permission to feel all of it. I want you to practice feeling all of it. And I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday season. Happy Thanksgiving. I love you guys so much. I'll talk to you next week. So take care. All right, ladies, if you are loving what you are learning on the podcast, I want to invite you to come join my coaching program. This is where we take it to the next level, and we actually start applying and learning the how of moving forward. This podcast has taught you the what, and the coaching program is where you're going to learn the how. This is where you learn how to actually start moving forward, process all of that pain that you feel, and let it go once and for all. If you are ready to finally move forward and stop living a life that revolves around your husband's pornography addiction, then I want to invite you to come join me today. Just head to my website, joleneWynn.com, and sign up today. I can't wait to see you there.